Hello, everybody. I'm Elwood, and this is Passion for Film, a place where I pretty much just yap about films that I like. And today's film is Disturbia. Disturbia is a film I watched for the first time a few nights ago. I was just sitting there watching Netflix. I was watching a few episodes of Big Mouth, which is a show I'm really enjoying at the moment, which is pretty great. And then I thought, oh, do you know what? I still got a few hours before I got to go to bed, so I'm just going to watch a film. So I was looking through my list, my saved films, whatever it's called, and one of them said leaving soon. So I thought less chance to watch this film, and that film happened to be Disturbia. But I'm really glad I clicked on it because I quite enjoyed it. So let's get into Disturbia. There's something in this film that everybody wishes would happen to them. A pretty girl your age moves in next door. I think this film did a pretty good job at that concept because apart from the spying on her with binoculars from your bedroom window part, it's fairly realistic as to how things would actually play out, which sort of helps with the relatability of it. In teen movies, in teen movies especially, all films benefit from it, but in teen movies especially, relatability is something that is crucial. It's probably the main reason why teen movies are so popular because everyone watching them has been a teen at some point and remembers what that was like. Or, well, in my case, I'm living through it right now. Although, unfortunately, I am yet to have a pretty girl move in next door. But on the flip side of that, I am fortunate enough to not live next to a serial killer. Well, that I know of. I don't actually watch many thriller movies about serial killers. So this film reminds me of pretty much the only other one I've watched, which is a little film called Spree, which I watched because it stars, oh gosh, what's his name? Joe Keery. It stars Joe Keery, which is somebody who I sort of looked up to. I was watching Stranger Things at the time, and he was probably my favorite character out of Stranger Things, Joe Keery's character. So I decided to watch Spree, which is a film about a guy who is on what would you call it? It's basically like Uber, a rideshare app. Not rideshare, you know what I mean. Basically like Uber, but it was called Spree. And this guy would pick people up and then kidnap them and de-alive them. But it was quite an entertaining film, and I liked it. But it also has the simple, low budget feel to it. Or sorry, I'm talking about Disturbia here as well as Spree. But it has that simple, low budget feel to it. Not necessarily saying it's low budget because I know the budget for Disturbia was actually 20 mil, I think. So it wasn't actually as low budget as I thought it was when I was watching it. But it's got that simple feel to it. Not many locations, nothing about it's too crazy, not like crazy VFX. So yeah, it's got that low budget feel to it. Similar to what I was talking about in my Donnie Darko episode, which you should go check out. By the way, go check out my Donnie Darko episode. It's a very good film. You should check it out. But it gave me inspiration, and that's what I was paying attention to. Really, I was watching the film from a filmmaking standpoint, as it's something feasible to make. So that's why I was kind of watching it from a filmmaking standpoint, as well as obviously watching the film and enjoying it. It was not really the same as if I was watching Star Wars or Avengers due to the complexity of it. It just doesn't. Those films you sort of watch just from the entertainment, because they don't feel like something that would be achievable for you. But smaller films like this that are quite simple, I watch them from a filmmaking standpoint because it gives me ideas. It gives me ideas on things to do and how I can make films that don't need massive budgets, like I was talking about with Star Wars or Avengers. Another thing I like about this film, and probably the reason why I actually saved it in the first place, I saw it and I saw the main man on the poster, which was Shia LaBeouf. So that's why I saved it, because I really like Shia LaBeouf. The 2007 Transformers film is like one of my top 3 favorite films. In fact, from my desk, which I'm recording this right now, if I look up, there's literally the poster of it above my desk. So I'm actually looking at Shia LaBeouf right now, which I didn't actually think about when I was. There we go. I'm just gazing at Shia LaBeouf right now, and Megan Fox. Ooh, okay. Anyway, getting back to it. One day I'll definitely do a video on Transformers. So, or I'll do videos on all of the Transformers films. Well, the ones I like. So so stay tuned for that. But I find myself studying Shia LaBeouf as an actor more than any other actor. When he delivers a line that I really just like the way he delivered it, I like the way he said it, I'll just sort of stop. I'll pause the film maybe, or keep it going if there's not too much happening, and I'll just say that line, and I'll see if I can say it the same way Shia LaBeouf said it. I don't know. It's just something about the fact that he and I would be sort of, well, in this film where he's playing a teenager, he plays that sort of teen awkward teen type of roles, which is something I relate to, not just as a real person, but also if I as an actor, if I was going for roles, that would be perhaps a role that I would be up for, rather than the serial killer or the mother. You know what I mean? Talking of mother, actually, I want to touch super briefly on the mum in this film, because as soon as I saw her, I just instantly I knew I recognized her. I just couldn't put my finger on where I'd seen her before. For some reason, I came to the conclusion that it was Dakota Johnson from flipping, what was that film, Madame Web, which I'd never even seen. I just remember making fun of it with my friend Luca because yeah, ridiculous. Anyway, not sure why I came to that conclusion. Maybe they look similar. I don't know. So I googled it up just to think and confirm whether or not I was right. And I was super surprised to see that it was Carrie-Anne Moss. It's flipping Trinity. As a huge Matrix fan, it was super weird to see her in anything else. And what a coincidence that in one film, there are two actors from films in my top 5. Well, in fact, now that I think about it, it's probably not that crazy at all. And it probably happens all the time. Maybe just more unlikely because this is my first time seeing her in anything other than The Matrix. Now, on a bit of a different note, I want to talk about how genius the story is. Such a simple setup. A kid stuck on house arrest, bored. It just becomes the perfect reason for him to spy on people. It's super clever because it forces all the tension to happen in this small, contained environment, just his house. Limitation is something that is absolutely crucial for a story. In a way, it just really adds to the tension because he's witnessing all of this scary stuff, but he has nowhere to run. It's the same sort of reason why the Alien films work, because you can't run away. There's nowhere to run on a spaceship. You just run into space. You can't really survive in space. But a lot of films sort of capitalize on that, especially horror films. And in fact, I've done a horror film like that, or more of a thriller than a horror. But I've done a film myself where it was set on a plane. And the thing about that is, you can't run away when the plane is in the air, obviously. So yeah, I like that idea. It was also crazy how much the film ramped up towards the end. The whole way through, it was kind of a quirky teen film, and then all of a sudden it just switched to full thriller. I guess it helps that I was watching the film in complete darkness in the middle of the night, which probably made it feel a lot more scarier than it was. But I gotta say, some of those final scenes were pretty scary. But there was a definite climax to this story arc, and it hits you like a truck. As I mentioned before, I don't really often watch this genre of film, so I was pleasantly surprised to see the teen hangout stuff balanced with the genuine suspense. They didn't feel like two separate films. They blended together really nicely. It was perfect. It was great because you get to know the characters in a lighter setting, I guess, before the thriller part kicks in. Then having that emotional connection built is great because, like, when the bad stuff happens to them, you actually care. Rather than we've all watched films where stuff happens to the characters and you're like, Okay, great. I don't really care. But this film is quite the opposite to that. I want to touch a bit about the cinematography. So that was something I was constantly paying attention to, was the cinematography, because there were so many POV shots through the binoculars or the camcorder peering over windowsills and whatnot. It really made you feel like you were the one spying. So when the person Kale is spying on notices him, it actually gives you a shock because you feel like you're the one spying. I also really like the authenticity of the camcorder type shots. The movement really reflects the handheld movement that it would have if you were holding a camcorder, especially if you had it zoomed in as far as he did. It made me wonder how they replicated this. Or maybe they just used the real thing. Maybe they just got a camcorder and filmed it like that. I found out after watching the film that it was actually adapted from a 1954 film, I believe, called Rear Windows. Despite the fact that I haven't watched this film, I don't think it's really adapted from. It's more like just inspired by. It's taken the same idea of discovering a murder through a window and it's just sort of modernized it, made it into a more fun teen film instead, gave it that suburban 2000s vibe. So there you go. If you didn't already know, which I didn't, then there's your fun fact for the day. Speaking of the suburban vibe, there's something extra creepy about horror or thriller stuff that's happening in quiet, normal suburbs. Like, it's not a haunted mansion, it's just a regular street. It could be your street. Well, I wish it was my street. Did you see the flipping size of those houses? God damn. But it does make you question, what if my neighbor is hiding something? That's something that makes Disturbia stand out. The realism. You can imagine this happening next door to you, which it wasn't too good for me as I was watching the film next to an open curtain, and it obviously was the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. So yeah, my mind kept playing tricks on me as it does. You know how it is when it's 2 a.m. Your mind plays tricks on you. So that didn't really help. But yeah, I think it also doesn't help that the serial killer neighbor, played by David Morse, kind of looks like an older version of one of my neighbors. In this film, David Morse gives a quite underrated villain performance, I would say. He doesn't overdo it, no cheesy lines or psycho facial expressions. He's just quiet and unsettling. Up until the end, his character remains grounded. Someone you might meet in real life and just think they were a little odd. That's one of the best things about this film. It keeps you guessing. Is this guy really a killer or is Shia just paranoid? That subtle tension is way better than a bunch of jump scares. Well, for me at least, because I think I would shit myself. But at some points, I found myself super confused. Like when, after what seemed to be her running for her life, the redhead girl is seen just leaving casually as though nothing happened. Or even when the neighbor turns up in Kale's house after befriending his mother, I was genuinely like, wait, what? Maybe it's a different. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, maybe it's a different neighbor. I don't know. But that keeping you guessing part was very good, especially for the engagement of the film. I'm gonna go on a little bit of a side tangent here. I like the initial scene where Kale punches his teacher. It's just so satisfying to see somebody get their own back on a teacher who's purposely trying to intimidate them. I feel like that's something that everyone can relate to at some point in school. Just just wanting to deck your teacher. I've been fortunate enough to have some really great teachers over the years. However, there have been times. Something else about this punch. Well, I always find that in movies, there's a noticeable difference between a punch like this one, out of the blue, natural. You can feel the weight behind it, emotionally and physically, compared to a punch in like an action fight sequence, perhaps in a superhero movie or something. Because they do it so much, the punches just no longer feel like they're as impactful. A clever way that some films, specifically boxing fight scenes, will sort of reel it back into reality and show the weight behind a punch, often a crucial punch that's changing the course of the fight, is by doing slow motion. It gives you that, it slows everything down, obviously, and it gives you that time to think and focus on what's happening, that punch. They do it in the Rocky films and the Creed movies which is great. I really like the Rocky movies, so stay tuned for a video about those. But my favorite use of this is actually in Snatch, which I talked previously about it in my episode on Snatch. I talked about it very briefly, but you can go see my brief chat on this. If you go and click in the top right corner in three, two, one, I go click on it. But yeah, my favorite use is in the scene where Brad Pitt is like, I think it's the final fight scene, I guess. But Brad Pitt is punched so hard, he just flies up in the air and he just does this crazy slow-mo fall where I think at one point his feet are actually higher in the air than his head, which of course is pretty bloody funny, but it also helps to show the impactfulness of the punch. Yeah, anyway, I bet you didn't expect me to spend so long talking about literally 1 second of the film. So, moving on. I'm going to end on a bit of a high note here. For a film about a serial killer, there are so many genuinely funny moments. It's that classic Shia LaBeouf awkward teen humor that I was talking about earlier that makes the film feel light, even when the story gets dark. I mentioned earlier how Transformers is one of my favorite films, and I would say that my favorite parts of that film aren't the crazy VFX shots or the massive explosions. It's just the raw hilarity caused by Shia and others towards the start of the film. Some of the funniest references that my dad and I quote all the time are from Transformers. That's all for the episode today. I hope you enjoyed the film just as much as I did. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And remember, again, to subscribe because, I mean, goodness gracious, look at this stat. I really need it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye now.